Hey folks, Amanda here. Just a quick heads up that from time to time, the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast does include some adult language. So if you've got kids with you, you may just want to hold on to this episode to listen to a little later. Enjoy! Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. I'm Amanda Solman, and along with Mark Jewell, your host for this show and the creator of the Surviving to Thriving movement. Each week, we'll dive into the mindsets that keep us in survival mode and learn how to get on the path to a truly thriving life. If you're looking for a wake-up call and want some valuable tools to get there, you have come to the right place. After all, survival is dead. It's your time to thrive today. Now, let's head over to the show.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. Today, I've got a real treat for you. We're going to have a live interview here that I really think you guys are going to love. Those of you that touch sales, that benefit from sales, that are in the sales world at all are going to love this. But even more than that, it's a good story of somebody who is young, somebody who has generated a significant level of success in building multiple multi-million-dollar companies with a heavy emphasis and a heavy focus on sales. And I even like his philosophy, as I don't with some of the folks out here in the space. So welcome to the show, Mr. Nathan Walker, man. It's awesome to have you on here today. So glad to get connected through this podcast medium, which is kind of how we got hooked up. But man, as I was just kind of doing a little bit of research and reading up on you, just scrolling through your Facebook here earlier today, you're a busy guy. You've got a few things going on. You've done a couple things. So yeah. So give us the background. Give us that 30,000 foot overview of you.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, like I was telling you before, I come from a very humble, just middle class family, Midwest. I grew up in Northwest Indiana. Really watched my parents work really hard my whole life. And to this day still, they're both still living and married, really working their butts off to exchange dollars for hours, really. That was kind of the game that they played. I grew up watching them struggle every single week to make ends meet. And they were always one catastrophe or one tragedy away from something really bad happening. And so I made a decision at a young age that, number one, I didn't want to do that. But number two, I wasn't very smart. I knew I wouldn't do good in college. And so honestly, man, I got into sales at a young age, like right out of high school. I found a vehicle that could give me the income that I wanted, along with the freedom, without the book smarts that most people.
Right.
And so from that, I started off really going door to door and made good money. I met my wife, and we started to build a family around a salesman income, and which was great. But then I got real excited in my mid-20s to start building companies and really got focused from, I changed my focus from how much money I could make to what kind of opportunities I could provide other people. And if I could share the life that I was able to get from being in sales with other people, then they can get to enjoy that too. And honestly, the obvious thing is that then I benefit too in the long run. But now we have, we own several different companies. We're an exclusive dealer for a company called Yellow Blue Ecotech.
Okay.
We focus on energy conservation in the home. So we sell people products that can lower their utility bills. We've built a pretty cool business around that over the last couple of years. And we're in states all across the Midwest. Collectively our teams will do, in the close to $20 million gross sales range. Mm-hmm. And, we've done it with a bunch of people without college degrees, without any formal training, and just having a lot of fun, man. We also are involved in real estate. I'm a dad, I could go on forever.
I love it. So what, one of the things, I just want to jump right into this, right? Because you noticed at the beginning, like right at the get-go, sales was like a good career, sure. That there was money, not only money to be made, but, you could see yourself doing this, even though, the traditional, the Mark Jewell route, go to get your 4-year degree, go work for a while, go back because you weren't happy and get a master's degree. Like that wasn't going to be
Yeah.
You know, so I'm coming out of my 30s, right? Just getting started in the business building realm. And I'll be honest, like one of the things I'll give you this, when I get together, like with my business mastermind of other guys that are building businesses, I'm kind of the dick in the room. I mean, I have, a couple of degrees and, I'm supposed to be this smart guy, out here I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else, man, trying to build a business. And you saw it early on, like sales is a good career and you just owned it. And so I admire that about you. What was the trigger? I mean, what you're like, hey, I like this. I'm going to go do this. What was that for you?
It's funny. I have a bit of a fundamental issue with that, even thinking like it wasn't even that I liked it as much as I knew it was necessary to get what I wanted. That's how it started. I learned to like it over time. I didn't know I liked sales. I mean, I didn't even know what it was, but here's what I did know. I knew that number one, I didn't want what my parents had to go through. So there was some pain associated with it. And I also knew that I wanted nice shit. Like I'm not going to, all the successful people that I knew that were doing big things and driving the nice cars and having the big houses, they're all in sales or own their own business. And so, it's that was basically it, over time I learned to make it easy and love it, but it had nothing to do with the product nor the role as much as it was like, I'm going to have to make this work if I want this life I'm, ahead of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Love it. So let's talk about the family a little bit. You mentioned that, and I know that's probably a big driving force for you. So talk to us a little bit about the fam.
Yeah. So, like I said, my parents are still married. They still work really hard. I'm able now to provide opportunities for them. My dad works, he works in the company as well.
Okay. Awesome.
My wife is she's big into network marketing. She's been real successful over the years in a couple different companies. I got two little girls, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old, or I'm sorry, a 10-year-old now. My little brother and his wife work with us and within the company. My best friends work with us. I mean, it's turned into a pretty family-oriented deal here, and it's all focused around everybody selling something.
Right. I love it, man. Right, the rising tide rises all ships, right? Yeah. Cool. So let's talk sales philosophy just a little bit, because I think that's, from my vantage point, we do a ton of sales training, coaching, et cetera. A lot of people get kind of lost, right? So it's all about getting to that point where I can close them, right? And that's like when I go into my classrooms or I go on stage and speak, people are always asking, okay, well, what's the best close? Like, how do I lock this guy down? Or if you ask them, what's their number one concern? Well, I'm not that good at closing. I think you and I are probably aligned, but talk to us a little bit about your philosophy about the getting to the close and everything else in between.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so that's something that I learned early on. There's a few things I number one, I never want to feel stupid, and I never want to feel like backed into a corner. And so the whole idea of like getting good at overcoming objections, having a favorite close, getting good at closing, that's all good. But what I've found and what we've really focused all of our business on now is developing a system and a process to which you walk a customer through what we have 5 steps. I believe the 5 steps we use, you can use in any industry, but we use 5 steps to where those primarily, I need to think about it. I need to shop around. I need to talk to my daughter, those main things that all have to do with trust and confidence in your product. We never get them. That's my goal. And so, really my philosophy is that if you start your deal off with making a friend and bringing that guard down, chipping away at that wall, and you're very aware of where you're at within the deal, you shouldn't really have to be closing hard. The close should come easy. You should be ready to ask for the deal, but not have to be slick and creative in your close, I guess.
And I just thank you for saying, like, I love hearing somebody other than myself speak those words, because at the end of the day, I mean, if you watch a lot of the videos, a lot of the guys that are out there supposedly producing, right? I mean, they're, it's all about, talking them into it, strong arming, yeah, exactly. And so that's what we start to see as like our, kind of our model, right? So if we're trying to encourage people to pursue careers in sales and then to do sales better and to have fun, provide for your family. Like one of the things you're talking about is helping multiple people create 6-figure incomes by selling stuff, right? And you're not talking about just create your own business or even do another multi-level marketing product. You're talking about literally create, selling physical product to somebody at their house.
Correct.
Real sales, right? And create really, really nice incomes for themselves. And so it's when we think about that, a lot of times what we think about is I gotta step up to the door and I've got to be, cute, or I've got to be quippy, or, quick on my feet. And it's not necessarily about that, is it?
No. And, it all depends on the industry that you're in. I think that for some people, if you're doing phone sales, you might have to use some of that stuff. You might have to, some of those guys,
Sure.
they're in a different world. In the world that I'm in, I'm selling a family. Number one, I believe in my product fully. So it's not, there isn't any guilt or shame in being persistent or passionate about what we're doing. But the reality is, man, is that like when you're with someone in their home, or you're with someone in that type of real personal, intimate setting, it should be their decision. And really, we talked a little bit about the products and what you did.
Mm-hmm.
The customer is going to benefit a lot more than I am. I could make $10,000 on a deal. It doesn't happen in my industry, but you could, and the 10 G's are going to be gone. You're going to spend it pretty quick, but hopefully whatever you have, in my case, I'm specific and very particular on the products that we offer. I want the customer to be able to enjoy it for much more than the $10,000 or whatever that number is,
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have that and you believe in it and you can instill that in your people, it does prevent that, like, jam it down your throat kind of deal. But
yeah. So you and I talk to a lot of people that are direct selling, going, door to door, farm to farm, whatever. We're both Midwestern kids, so probably got some similar values that way. What does it look like, for you to, step up to a new door that you've never knocked on before, and build rapport with somebody, or create that connection, get that conversation going?
Sure. So what's funny is that we have this kind of philosophy here that every single house that we walk up to, I believe they're a buyer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the way, we don't just cold call people. We have a
Sure.
process to which they kind of know we're coming.
Mm-hmm.
But I walk up to every door believing that they're capable, willing, able buyers, and that they're going to do business with me. However, I'm prepared that they're too old, they're too young, they're too broke, they're too rich. So it's kind of a weird thing. That's all my guys are. They go up to a door with that in mind. But honestly, it starts with a very, I don't know if you're into like fighting or boxing, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
We take a jiu-jitsu approach to everything. I'm not going to go and just start throwing punches with someone. I'm going to get them to move into my, get them where I want them. And so it starts with the way you approach the door. It's funny you mentioned that. We pull up to a house. We have our shit together. We don't sit in the driveway and look awkward. We're ready. We walk up to the house confidently and presentable, smiling most of the cases, because I'm assuming that they're watching me through the window.
Right.
Knock on the door and I just, hey, how are you? It's just a very casual, every single one. When you're dealing with someone in their home, I try to be as unsalesy as possible throughout those first few minutes of interaction,
Yeah.
And we also try to make, in every single situation, the first, really, it can go up to 15, 20 minutes depending. Really not even about the product or the reason that we're there. We try to find some other common ground to talk about: their cars, their truck, their family, their farm, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure two things. Number one, they need to be comfortable with me enough to make a decision to buy from me. But I also need to be comfortable enough with them to understand what it is that they actually need. And the only way to get there is to get on that ground where we've kind of got our guards down and we feel loose with each other. Long answer to your question. Sorry.
Well, but it's an appropriate answer, as I think about it. I mean, it's one of the moments where I think a lot of deals get, won or lost is in that first, 5, 10, 15 minutes. When I go out and do training, I call it the, exchanging of formalities, right? So we're kind of getting to know, like, you drive by, see a lot of my customers are driving around, they see somebody out in the yard at the farm or something like that. And so they pull in to say hi, right? And we might talk about the football game, the weather, harvest, whatever else is going on. And then there comes what I call the dirt kicking moment. And this is the moment where everybody kind of looks down at their shoes and kicks the dirt. Right. And then that's the moment. So you're talking about fighting. I use fighting a ton from an analogy standpoint in my work. And in fact, I train that way. Side note, getting ready to compete in the Muay Thai Nationals next summer as like an amateur. And they're creating an executives division just for business owners that don't want to go home with concussions. So
I want to be in that.
yeah. So anyway, that's, but we when I bring my clients into town, we actually go, and there's a world champion fighter out of Ireland that lives here in Omaha where I am. And, his name's Mick Doyle, and we bring everybody in at 6 a.m. for a workout, for a kickboxing workout. Most of them have never been through that experience, but we frame it up as literally, it's when we're out here selling to somebody, it's kind of a battle for control, right? I mean, in a way, or it's a dance, right? For control of the conversation, and whoever maintains the most control of that conversation at the end of the day probably is going to win.
Yep.
Right. And so a lot of people think, well, I got to come in, I got to be, control the story around my product and why I'm there. And it's not. I mean, sometimes it's just about being warm and, open and so on and so forth. So love the answer to that.
Sure. It's funny. I had a guy here in the office this morning. He said that he had a customer call him back and say, you know what, we were there on a Thursday, and he's like, I already have a guy coming tomorrow. I always get 2 bids, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen a ton in our industry, but it happened. And he said, the guy called him back and said, hey, I just want you to know, number 1, come on over. We're ready to roll. But number 2, the guy that came here yesterday, you were twice as expensive as him, but I just like you and I trust you,
Wow.
and that happens a lot in our business because it ultimately comes down to that. And the thing is you can't do that. You can't have control if they don't like you.
Exactly.
Here, and this is I'll rip off Grant Cardone here, but he talks about not taking control, but having them give you control. That's the whole thing right there. Is I don't want to fight you over it. I want to establish myself as an expert who you like and trust, and that you just hand it on over to me. That's
absolutely.
That's how you make it easy.
I dig it, man. That's so true. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about building teams, right? Because obviously you're not out there selling all this yourself, or you wouldn't have several multi-million-dollar companies that you've built in your name. So talk to us about building teams. Like what's that process look like for you internal?
So number 1, I mean, I got to a point where I had built a small team, and I realized that for me as my personality, I was hanging on to people longer than I needed to. I wanted something for someone that they didn't want necessarily, and I was missing some key signs. And so one of the best things I ever did was I hired a full-time recruiter trainer, a guy by the name Jonathan Fisher. He's been with me for several years. He does all of that. He helps me with that team building. We sit down and we discuss exactly what it is that we want. He goes out and finds them. But I'll tell you what it's based around. We call it strength-based recruiting, which means in my world, we do 2 parts. People will come to a seminar and we'll put on a presentation on energy savings products, and they'll make an appointment for us to come out and do an analysis of their home. It's 2 different skill sets. Putting on a presentation is a lot different than having a conversation. And so the key for me, the real successful part to our growth has been, number 1, quickly identifying people's strengths and not really trying to over teach them something that they're probably never going to be great at. Meaning a 6 is never going to be a 10. Like a guy who's just a 6, he's a 6. And let's figure out how do we get the most out of that 6. It doesn't mean he doesn't, there's not a place for him. But then the other key to that is having a system around everything that we do. So none of the people in my business or associated with me are just out kind of just swinging, hoping something happens. There's always a plan, and there's a process to which they follow. And then the other big key to that is that we do constant training. We are the biggest advocates of training. We've been on Cardone U for a long time, and we have some of our own things that we've created within in-house here. But when you factor identifying people's strengths and really playing to what they're good at, along with having a good process to plug them into, and then doing daily training, you could do some crazy shit, man. Like there's no limit to it.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. So, I mean, you're talking about, as I kind of distill this down, right? I mean, making sure that kind of where people are at on I'm sure you're rating or kind of paying attention to where your salespeople are at from a strength based perspective, which I love. But then actually like knowing what the hell they're doing, right? Knowing what they're creating, right? And then training to that on a daily basis. Yeah, absolutely. What's the, what are what's it like for setting expectations with your guys? And are you guys national? Are you kind of all over the place? Are you pretty local? But
we're in, so really within I help out a lot with the national, the manufacturer. So Yellow Blue, which is a manufacturer. I'm an owner of that company. So I help with some of the growth of that bigger picture. So there's guys in almost every state doing this.
Yeah.
The offices to which I own and directly oversee are really Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Kentucky, a little bit of that, Michigan, a little bit. But, so yeah, we're kind of all over the place. It's mainly a Midwest kind of thing. But, what we are looking for, what we're trying to build is, we're trying to find people with a clean slate usually.
Yeah.
I don't like to try to break bad habits. It's just a hard thing to do. I'd rather have a guy with no experience, with no bad habits, but a good heart and trainable. I'll take that guy over the seasoned veteran every single day. Doesn't mean that we don't want seasoned vets, but I'm just saying it seems to be that's been our niche, over the last several years.
Cool. I like it. One of the things that I see a lot of companies struggle with is maintaining the ability to coach, which I'll be honest, I'm thankful for, because they outsource a lot of that coaching to me and to my team. So, that's great. But I also, have a heart for people who need that coaching. So is that kind of a part of the process, or are you mixing it up with the digital products, physical products? Like, how does that sort of internal development?
To both and, really, with the new, with technology the way it is, there's ways to which you can put things down on an online platform, and you can just have it at their fingertips 24 hours a day. So we use Cardone U for that, for a lot of the basics of sales training. But I really believe that face-to-face interaction is important, So to kind of give you an idea, we have a sales meeting every single morning. Every morning at 8:30, everybody gets on a call, no matter what you're doing. If you're sick, you get on the call. It's just it's a must. So we do that every day. We do it to update people on where we're at, kind of reassess goals and things like that. And then we'll pick a topic and do a little bit of training on it every single morning.
Right on.
On that, they have access to Cardone University. So they've got curriculum to follow where they can just fine tune and keep their axe sharpened on the basics of selling, and even some more of the, more extensive sales training stuff. But then a lot of it is just going out and working with people, being face-to-face with them. Mm-hmm. I was just talking to a guy earlier. He was saying, every time this guy shows up to an area, they increase business while he's there. And I'm like, well, yeah, but what happens when he leaves? You can come in and bring in, you can wait until someone's broken, go in and revive them for a day, but then they'll be broken again. And so our whole thing is to try to keep that momentum just constantly going and try to predict things before they happen,
Right on. So switching from the team development back to the just general sales process, one more thing came up, and then I'm going to go into a whole different area altogether. But when your guys are in there, how do you coach them on that objection component, right? Because we all know, at the end of the day, you might encounter one, no matter how good of a job you do, whether it's a price objection, a timing, whatever, a cash flow objection, something like that. So what kind of things, how do you kind of help people to be present and have the confidence to work through that instead of tuck tail and run?
Yeah. So, there's a few things that we use. We use the car business TO system. I don't know if you've ever been to a car dealership and had a manager step in. Mm-hmm. All of our guys follow a process to where they're following a 5-step sales process. So, in between a few of those steps, they're making calls into a manager to kind of let them know where they're going. And so that helps us identify what's going on. And if they're missing something, we'll catch it usually. Meaning, if they're moving from the 5-minute friend onto some fact finding and investigating, and the wife's not totally engaged, I can ask them that while they're there and make sure we're on the same page. So the real key here in my business, and I believe it should be the key in every business, is by the time we sit down at the table, whether that be the kitchen table or a boardroom meeting, I need to be pretty clear of a few things. I need to be pretty clear that what I have is actually going to serve them and benefit them, that they actually need it. Mm-hmm. Number 2, they need to believe that what I have, they actually need and could benefit from it. Yes. And then they need to really trust that I'm the expert and I know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, when you get those objections, it always comes down to trust. There was something about either you, the product, or the company that they didn't trust. 100% of the time, it's always what it is. And I don't care what, people can sugarcoat it with other things, but it's always what it is,
Mm-hmm.
most of the time you don't ever know the real objection because they don't tell you. They tell you something else to get you out of their hair.
Right.
So the key is to walk them through a process and be very engaged with what they're doing and know exactly what you heard. GSP, did you watch the fight on Saturday?
Yeah.
Heard GSP when they asked him about that the shot that kind of took him down, he kind of smiled like, yeah, that's what I was going to do. Like, it wasn't an accident, you know what I mean? And so that's the whole thing. Like, we don't go into a fight just trying to get a rear naked choke. We're going to knock them down first, pound them a little bit, and then go for, so that's the whole thing. So I'm never shocked. I'm never shocked by an objection.
Right. Absolutely. So I know I have a lot of salespeople or sales managers that are going to listen to this episode at some point. And the biggest thing is, like, I'm no longer mystified, but used to be mystified by the fact that salespeople are so damn surprised that they got an objection.
Yeah.
Right. And it's almost always price, especially in my industry. It's just, the actual sale is about so much more than that. You boiled it down to trust, which, pretty much I agree with. I mean, really, that's the biggest thing. I missed a step. And so, one of the biggest things, I want to switch and talk a little bit about mindset here. And so just kind of share some context. So when we do training, we basically say, what good is a skill set without the right mindset? Okay, and that's kind of our whole philosophy. Our training is 4 parts mindset, 1 part skill set when it comes to sales development. And so what I see a lot of salespeople doing, right, is blaming the customer for the reason that they didn't get the deal.
Sure.
Right. This is one, I think, probably the number one mistake is we go in and they say, well, it was too much money, or whatever. My wife wasn't on board. It wasn't the right time. I don't have the right people in the room, whatever it is. Right. So we blame it on them, and then we push it and we push it and we push it, or they're not ready. I didn't feel it wasn't right to push them today, or it wasn't time to I didn't feel comfortable asking for the deal, whatever the excuse is, right? It always becomes about them. And so anytime I'm coaching a salesperson and we get into a conversation where they start to blame somebody other than themselves for why it didn't go, I start asking different questions, not about the customer, about what was your process, right? Where was your head at? What was the mindset like going in? So how important for you and your guys is the mindset? Like, what does that really look like? Skill set's great. You can have great openings, great rapport building, great process. But to me, I mean, sometimes sales can get rough. You can get in a slump. You got to be able to break out of that crappy mindset and get into something better. So kind of left the door wide open for you there, Nathan.
But we got a bunch we could say here. I'll start with one thing. Yeah. That conversation, and I know exactly what you're talking about, the blaming. You get to have that conversation with me like maybe once. If we don't torch you on that one, it's the next one coming. We don't tolerate for that at all in our group here. And none of my managers do either, because in fact, you can't see it in here, but on the other side of my board there, we wrote, you have to be 100% responsible for every deal. Them not buying is my problem, not their problem. Them being too old, them being too young, them not, the timing not being right. That is my responsibility, because the reality is that, these are, a lot of times they're not even real. They're just instinctive things that people say. Yeah. And shame on you for letting them prevent themselves from having your product. If your product is as good as you say it is, then you're an asshole for not being better than that and not letting them, not allowing them to receive your product. So that's the first thing to it. And when I say that, the reality is most of my guys don't do that. So there's been a few, but I mean, like we've torched guys on one time tell me that it was the customer's fault. And if I've got a hunch that this is going to be an ongoing problem, then we're done. I have though had guys, I'll give you an example, tax time. Most of my guys are 1099 guys. Some of them aren't as responsible with their money as they should. You'll notice around tax time, all of a sudden them getting money's tight right now. They're telling me that the reason the customer didn't buy is because money's tight. Well, it's because money's tight in your house right now too. You're believing them. You're empathizing with them. You know what I'm saying? So it's important for me that my guys have some bankroll and that they don't think $5,000 is too much money. You know what I mean? They have to believe that that's not the case. And so if they're, and this just came up recently, a guy was like, we were getting the same objection. And I'm like, dude, I bet when you buy, you're doing the same thing. You tell people that, don't you? When you go and look, you're telling you're telling a salesman the same shit that people are telling you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're 100% spot on. Your mindset and your mental capacity going into there has a lot more to do with your skill set for sure.
Absolutely. So basically there's two pieces I want to hit here. So number one, rejection is protection, right? So if I'm rejecting you as a salesperson or rejecting whatever, really I'm protecting myself because I don't have a deep enough level of trust in what you're selling or that you're going to take care of me or the company, the brand, whatever. Right. So there's the rejection piece. And then there's the other piece where we always say as within, so without. Right. So if my internal story is that money's tight, if you're looking for the resource on that, Dark Side of the Light Chasers, massively good book by Debbie Brown. But as within, so without. Right. So if I'm seeing it internally, or if that's my internal story around money, around age, around whether they're male or female, whatever association I have or whatever experience I have with that person, is really all about me. It's nothing to do with them. Right. It's all about me. So
I love that, man.
Yeah. Mindset, super, super important. Do you guys have anything that you guys do to kind of help guys work through that? Is it just, if I'm a 1099 employee, right, I've got to kind of be moving and shaking, right? Cause there's no base pay, coming my direction. Right.
So commission, all my guys. So we're huge into personal development. I look at, we talk about this almost, really, we talk about it daily. This world is filled with so much negativity and so much crap that like what you're putting in, just like you said, as within, so without, like you have to be overflowing your cup with good stuff. And so I look at it as you start your day off with, if you kind of picture, because the people who are listening to this can't see, picture like an old time balance or like an old scale.
Sure.
And just assume that throughout the day, there's going to be things that are going to weigh down that negativity side. And they're going to weigh down that limiting beliefs, whatever these things are. And so it's really in your best interest to freaking overload that other side so that those things that come up don't even mess with it,
Yeah.
And so things like simple stuff, but putting your phone down and spending time with your kids, quality time with your family, making sure your home is super solid is important. But then when you're in your car, your guys are a lot like mine, they're driving around. We're big into Grant Cardone, Bradley, these guys. Like, you need to be listening to positive stuff. You need to be just constantly keeping that going. And honestly, that's one of the reasons that I'm doing these podcasts. And I do a podcast too. Like, I want to be a resource for people that instead of listening to the news, it's a tragedy, the things that are going on in the world. There's nothing I can do about it. And me hearing it constantly and hearing the same news reporters say it 100 times a slightly different way is not going to help anything, So your personal development and making sure that your axe is sharp is the most important thing in my world, 100%. Yeah. The other thing, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think one of the best things you can do is go sell shit.
Yeah.
Make the economy better. I mean, that's the one thing you can do, right? I mean, go out and produce like it's nobody's business so that you can support your family, have the lifestyle that, you want to have and be able to support your family with, and spend money, right? I mean, it's whatever, save some money, invest some money, but, do things that help the economy. I mean, that is one of the best things to, keep the wolves at bay, so to speak. And I think you're right. Shut off the damn news and put on a podcast. The best $13 a month I spend is on YouTube Red so that I can stream YouTube in the background constantly. I mean, that's like the one thing that I keep on, because I can just, there's millions of hours of motivational content being produced all the time with everybody under the sun on YouTube. And I keep it'll probably go 4 or 5 hours a day, just streaming on whether it's a Bluetooth speaker, my earbuds or whatever. So I'm right there. Yeah.
Fall asleep listening to stuff constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're fine.
Part of this, part of the challenge that I have is that people aren't in my office every day. And so as a leader, you talked earlier about building teams. Mm-hmm. I also know that everybody has an expiration date in every position and in life in general. And so my goal is to try to really protect that and prolong it as long as we can. One of the ways that you can do that is by staying active and keeping moving. And when you said that when you make a sale, you help the economy, I sometimes have to remind people that you create it, you go and let's say that whatever it is, you take my product, you go make a sale. Number one, the customer gets that forever. So that's their product in our case, they get it for the lifetime of their home. It's theirs. Mm-hmm. But you just gave the installers a job. You gave my dad a job who can go and drive and pick up the inventory. You gave the manufacturers, like all that. There's a ripple effect in that. And shame on you for being so selfish that you're so worried about what happened in Texas. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's sad, say a prayer and move on, go make a sale. I'm 100% on with you on that. It's always the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, we teach a lot from the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell's research on, the basically the 4-step process from going from zero to hero, and take any of your favorite movies, Rocky as an example, to stick with the fighting theme here today. Kind of go, he's just kind of a guy getting through living life in Philly, and then there's that trigger moment where, he gets the fight, gets the invitation to go and fight. And then it's all the extraordinary circumstance that he has to go through in order to get there. Right. And then 15 rounds, right. In order to win the fight. And so what I think a lot of people don't get is that doesn't just have to be about Rocky, right? Or Southpaw, or pick, your kind of Braveheart hero of the movie, kind of thing. We don't see ourselves right in that picture because we don't call ourselves a hero, right? But if you just took off the label hero and just said, well, this is my journey, right? And then knowing that, if you look at any Bible story, right? Look at any movie, look at any book that's written about somebody who goes from zero to hero. There's a 4-step proven process, just like your five-step proven sales process. It works, right? Yeah. Consistently. Okay. Hero's journey is exactly the same thing. If I'm willing to plug myself into it and actually opt into those extraordinary circumstances instead of wait for those things to come to me and happen to me.
Absolutely.
Which is what 95, probably 98% of the rest of the world is doing, is waiting for those things to happen to them so that they can step up into their greatness. And the reality is you can opt into it each and every day. Just go do your job.
Love it.
So, as I think about that, that's huge. So what advice, I guess, we'll kind of start to bring this thing in for a landing a little bit here, for those people that are out there thinking like, I don't know, maybe sales is a career, maybe it's not, maybe I'm struggling to build a sales team. I don't know. What are like 1 or 2 kind of extraordinary circumstances that I could opt into as a salesperson, as a sales leader, et cetera? What is that? I guess, what would you kind of say? Hey, this is one thing you can go do tomorrow that will make you better as a
So number one, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Every industry has someone that's doing really, really good at it. So like, there's guys in the window business that are like, yeah, I'm just struggling. Dude, there's someone in the window business that's killing it. So what you need to do is find out what the guy that's killing it's doing, and you need to just copy them.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's already someone out there that's done almost anything that you can do. So number one is you need to make sure that the people you're getting advice from are people that are actually winning. That's a huge problem, especially in sales. Everybody wants to offer up advice. Everybody wants to be an expert. The guy that's broke, that hasn't made a sale in a month, is going to be the first guy willing to give you information. And so you got to be real careful with that. So I would say number one is to be a sponge to the people that are winning.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is that person is probably following some sort of process. They're following some system. There's some steps. There's something there. And you need to adapt them, and you need to learn them, and you need to be 100% committed to them and not change a thing about it. That's honestly, it's the simplest solution ever. And then beyond that, just fill in your mind with good stuff and get involved with a sales mentor. I really think is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not here just to pitch that, but I think that, there are a lot of guys out there like me and you that will offer up free advice, that have free podcasts and free things you can listen to. You don't need to spend a bunch of money. I will say the best money I've ever spent in my life was on sales training. Hands down, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on sales training in my life. It is the best money I've ever made. Or best money I've ever spent. So, if you take those things, find someone that's winning and copy them, figure out what their system is and mimic it, and then fill your brain with good stuff and train daily, you can't lose. You really can't. The people that are losing and claiming that they're doing that are bullshit, and they're not doing it. It's just impossible.
Right. Right. So here's something that's kind of interesting as you say that, right? So many people are out there thinking right now, like, I've got to go recreate the damn wheel so that I can be successful in my own unique way. Right. And then I'll go build an info product based on that and go sell it. We're all, I don't care if you are in the info product business. I mean, in a way I am, we're a service-based business. But I mean, it's really, I mean, as I look at the sales process from one company to the next, from one author to the next, from one expert to the next, it's not that different, right? I mean, they're basically the same. It's just you put a new voice to it, a new face to it, a new spin to it. But what I love about what you're saying is find somebody that's doing it, who's actually successful, who's actually producing results, and copy. Like literally copy, paste, go do. And it literally is as simple as that. And I think most people get caught up in this idea that I need to go create my own thing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's a product of the world that we live in, man. We have technology and information overload that, really one of the things, it's funny, I just said that you can go online or listen to guys like me. One of the best things that I ever did was I latched onto one person, like I found a guy in my industry when I first got into this world. His name's Ron Young. He'll probably listen to this. And he was killing it. And I'm just like, what's he doing? I want to follow him. I don't need to hear from 50 people. Let me hear from one and go do it. Same thing is kind of true with sales gurus and trainers and stuff like that. I chose to kind of latch on to Grant's philosophy. I don't think that you could take a little from Grant, take a little from Tony Robbins, take a little from Zig, pick one thing and prove that you could commit to it is usually a big thing, because the same guy that will jump around with trainers will jump around with jobs, will jump around with wives, and it's kind of it's a personality trait. So just be consistent. Someone just commented on here, don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with. It's a good place, and that's, think about that. How many people are out there offering, to give you some advice in your career, and you wouldn't even want what they have. So why even listening,
Absolutely. It's good stuff, man. I like it. So if I want to tune in with Nathan Walker, kind of follow the story and just stay tuned for what's next. I mean, I know this is, kind of, let's get on here and talk about sales and share this with people. But if I want to tune in, follow along, how do I do that?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Facebook. My Facebook name is The Nathan Walker. That's how you can find me. We have a podcast called Level Up with Nathan Walker. You can find that too. We do that on Mondays and Fridays. You can kind of tune in there. I'm on Instagram a little bit, _Nathan_Walker on Instagram. But, man, honestly, like I want to meet more people like you. I learn from guys like you. I'd love to share what I've learned and learn as much as I can, man. We got one shot, one span of life here. And so I'm going to suck as much knowledge in as I can and give as much out as I possibly can too,
Awesome. Love that. So let's end with that from an appreciation note, a giving note. I don't know this is always the rule. I don't know anybody who's successful that's not also accessible and giving at some level. So what's the favorite cause, charity? Feel free to give your plug here.
Sure. Yeah. So we have a charitable arm of our national manufacturer. It's called the F4 Foundation. You can find that. You can actually go to yellowbluetech.com, or you can go to energycomfortsystems.com. There's links in there too. But F4 Foundation is that's our charitable arm, and we're super proud of that. We do local and international stuff with that.
Wonderful. Love it, man. Any last thoughts for the group on sales, mindset, or otherwise?
Dude, I'm just going to tell you right now that there's a lot of money out there. All right. There's no excuse to be broke. There's no excuse to be not living the life that you want. If I can do it, a guy that had no money, that did no college and had parents that didn't have a ton of money, if I can do it, literally anybody can do it. It just all comes down to how bad you want it. And are you willing to go out and do the work it's going to take? But it's there, man. Plenty of money, plenty of money out there.
Absolutely, man. I love it. And here's the thing. I want to capitalize on that and not to steal your thunder, but it literally is this, man. Sales is a beautiful career and it's fun.
A lot of fun.
Right? I mean, it is fun. I had an experience early on that made me really not like it. And then I got away from it. Like I was almost ashamed of it. And I came back to it eventually once I found something I believed in, that I was passionate about, and all of a sudden, boom, it's like, hey, this is fun. Like there's a science, there's a proven process here. There are things you can do that are measurable. And all of a sudden it's like, I mean, I run my company now. I'm also the face. I'm the speaker. I'm the guy out here doing the stuff. And I love to get on the phone and sell.
Absolutely.
Because it's so much fun. And there's plenty of money out there, plenty of money to be made in it. So Nathan Walker, you guys, thank you so much. Follow along with him, Facebook, Instagram, and so on and so forth. Jump in there, and we'll be seeing you on the next one. And listen to that advice, guys. There's money to be made. Sales is a profession that you can be proud to be a part of, because I think anything else is just surviving. It's your time to thrive today. Let's go and get it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning in to the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. You can find the show notes and links to all the resources mentioned in this episode by heading over to markjeweltraining.com/podcast. And if you feel so inclined, we'd love it if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. That's what helps us move up in the charts so that more people can find us and start their surviving to thriving journey. See you next week.